if you can see this. Okay. And of course, you can find all the resources at bit.ly/ELT links. You can always email me for certificates and stuff. I'm a little behind though. So one of the first things that I recommend is let's talk about the novel in general. So in the beginning, one of the things that I think is a great idea that a lot of teachers are doing now is they're giving them a choice. And there are some English language teachers that are actually starting ebook clubs. And they're face-to-face. And their students, they're encouraging them to get into small groups and pick a novel. And then, and there are various ways that you can do this. You don't necessarily have to have them randomly pick. You can, and then they can write, for example, why they picked that novel and describe it for you. And kind of they're submitting, basically, it's like them submitting a proposal that this is why they want to read this particular novel. You can do it that way, or you can do it to where you give them a list of novels, like of different novels, and then allow them to suggest one to the list. And a lot of times, I think it's a great idea to do this because there's a lot of novels out there that students will read and that we don't realize are really great novels, or but they have a modern twist and the students will read them. So I think it's always good to ask the students. I'm going to check really quick if you all can hear me and see me. So I'm going to go in the class. Can you hear me and see me? Yes, this is a live lesson. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, that always happens. Is my voice still breaking up? I hope not. Yes, my picture is frozen. That's to help with the bandwidth. Oh, well, thank you, Raquel. Okay, so give them a choice. The next one is pair or group them. With English language learners, it's really important with novels. It's such intense reading. It's a lot of big words and themes and motives and culture and history. It's really complex to read a novel because basically the novel in that language is is taking a picture of something the student isn't familiar with. It's a picture of a different country. It's a picture of, it's got a lot of idioms and culturally specific references and culturally and themes and symbols. And so it's really difficult. So if you pair or group them, then you're more likely to have the students have, they can scaffold and help each other out. And that method is actually called literary circles. And in the bit.ly address, you'll see more information about how to conduct very successful literary circles. Um, I think we can be creative. We can have, we can allow them to use things such as graphic novels. A lot of our students, especially teenagers, will be interested in different types of graphic novels out there. And there are some that are really, really, really good. I've bookmarked DC's 30 essential graphic novels, and they're with great themes. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, they're at a good level. And the great thing about a graphic novel is it has visual aids. But what's even more exciting is actually if you go to Henley ELT, and usually I don't try to promote products, but I think this one is a really good one. They have all the classics in graphic novels. They're at the intermediate level. And they have an audio CD with text for the full recordings of the story with professional actors. So this one was specifically made for English language learners. So I really think it's something that you should check out, and you have so far about 10 of them. And I think this is a fun way to have your students begin to read the novels and understand them. So let's talk a little about pre-reading. What can we do before actually tackling on a novel? Well, the graded readers, which are a really, really good choice as well. But one of the things I think we can do is introduce the context in creative ways. How many of you have used drama and walked in and introduced the lesson that way? I think that's really fun. A lot of the teenagers and kids will really enjoy that, because the first thing is you hear something that, you know, you can never make a first impression, or you can never redo your first impression. So one of the things that you want to do is make sure that when you introduce whatever novel or reading, that you make it as fun as possible. Give them a good impression of why they would want to read this, related to the real world experience, you know, why it's important. I think a lot of us, a lot of students think that the novels that we choose are very old and in the past, and they don't want to read them because they think it doesn't apply to the real life. But things even like Shakespeare, they do apply to the life even now. The kids just have to make that connection. So, you know, you can dress up, you can come into class and have them, um, you can bring maybe like a guest expert that comes in. If you're reading, for example, a novel about the Holocaust, then maybe you could have a Holocaust survivor or the student, the child of a Holocaust survivor, come in the classroom and speak to the students about that. If you're reading something about space, maybe you can have somebody from NASA come in. So there's different ways you can introduce the novel that make it very, very, very creative. And if anything, just show a video. And you don't have to have the internet for that. You can download a video from YouTube, like a YouTube clip of the movie, like the movie trailer. A lot of novels have movies that follow them, and you can show that. Introduce it by using graphic organizers. Now, I put a really useful website on the bit.ly address, but this is called the Nonfiction and KWL chart. It's like a different version of it, and it's what you know about the context, about the themes, about the history of the time, so introduce the history, and then the student will say what they wonder about the novel or the book that they're reading. And then finally at the end of the chapter, you can do this for every chapter, what they have learned. I think it's really important when we introduce reading strategies. We need to teach many of our learners not only the language, but how to read, because a lot of times if they understand the reading strategies before that, then they'll be able to effectively read and understand what they're reading. So I like the SQ3R method. It stands for survey, question, read, recite, and review. And it's usually used for magazines, but it's really great because you can even do it during the reading. It's great strategies. Basically, and actually we'll pause this right here. So let me stop sharing my screen really quick. And then you can see my lovely face. But I will show you what the SQ3R is really quick. You can see my picture. Okay, so you can see me, right? Yeah, there's different types of reading strategies. There's the 5-step. But basically, you get a sheet of paper. So I'm going to grab this sheet of paper here. This is what the student will do. They'll grab a sheet of paper, and then they'll put it into half like this. They'll fold it into half. And while they're reading, they write on the side. So they survey, and then they write questions, any kind of highlights that they have, and it's really great kind of strategy. And they write questions too, like before the actual reading, they'll write a question, and then towards the end of the chapter, they'll try to go back and they'll answer those questions. So for example, if they see the title, they survey the title, the bold print, if there's any kind of pictures, and then they'll ask a question. They'll say, oh, you know, what year is this taking place? And then by the end of the chapter, they have to try and actually answer the question. So it's a good strategy, I think, and it's a lot of fun because they get to do something while they're reading. Okay, so I'm going to freeze my picture again. Oops. Okay, so here we go again. Let's share my screen. Okay, the next thing we want to do is there's some more activities you can do. Pre-reading activities, interviews. You can have the students, before they read something that's very complex, maybe they can interview their parents about it. So if they're reading about World War I, World War II, they have them do interviews of, um, different people that lived during the time. And students get interested by hearing stories of adults. And it's a great way to have their parents tell them a little about history as well. Or they can just see interviews. If you go to the historychannel.com or history.com, then you will see lots of authentic videos with people from the past that the students can look at to get the understanding of the context, because that's one of the hardest things, is that the students didn't live during that time, so they may not understand what happened, what the world was like. And so if we introduce the context before they start reading the novel, then it's very, very helpful for them to have a picture and a mindset. And, have them, when you're doing a video or playing a movie clip, ask them questions, have them in groups discuss what was the dress like, why did they dress like that, what could women do back then, what could men do back then, what did teenagers do back then, whatever their age group is, how they imagine life would be then versus now. Have them do comparison and contrast charts. Word clouds and guessing games are always fantastic. A lot of times you can find chapters of the novel online, and then you can put that through a word cloud and see what kind of themes and what kind of words come out first, and then have the student take those out and guess what they think is going to happen in the chapter. Um, and those are always great too, to have students guess what's going to happen with this character, what's going to happen with that character, after you introduce a list of characters. Okay, so some tips. Review culturally specific language. So if you're reading a novel and it happens to be, for example, Shakespeare, then there's certain types of phrases and there's different types of jokes that are going to be made that are British English. So we have to remember to review the culturally specific language, especially things that are different from the culture of the students. And if that's the case, then you can do a comparison and contrast with that as well, where the students note what's the different along the way while they're reading too. They can note how something is very different from their culture. And the great thing about that is it ties it to their real world experience. They're reflecting on, and they will be able to remember much more. Explore the history and do this in creative ways. Once again, play a video. I think visuals and audio and all of that is really important. And at this point in time, I think even if it's a movie trailer, to play it, because a lot of the students aren't going to understand it if they don't have the visuals, if they can't picture it ahead of time. And then literature circles. Like I said before, there's a lot of ways to make a literature circle within the class and make it very, very successful. And a literature circle is a group of students, usually about 4 or 5, that read a novel, and then they all do the activities together for that. And then another group will read a different novel. And then at the end, all the groups introduce in a very great kind of interactive way and like multimedia project, they can introduce each other's novels to each other. So it's a fun way to do it. So post-reading, what happens after they read a chapter? What happens after they read the novel? Well, they can do things to kind of make it fun for you. A lot of times we want them to write essays and answer questions, but I think it's much better if they actually do an activity, because what happens is along the way they start getting tired and then they are not motivated to continue reading. So I like to play podcasts. I like them to create podcasts about what they just read, and be very, very kind of, I mean, they can do video reviews. There's so much they can do that's fun and will still give them the great assessment that's needed and have them reflect on what they just learned. Make it into a comic. I think comics are great because then they can really, in the comic, point out themes, point out symbols. They can include that. They can include the context, and they also have to create the background. What they have to think, okay, back in history, what this would look like. When they make it into a comic, ask them to make it. You can ask them to make it into a comic for now, like how the story would be now. How they can change the language. They can modernize it. And that'll help them remember what they just read and reflect on it deeply. There's more post-reading activities. They can watch the movies. They can do group projects. They can use drama. Have them act it out. A lot of the kids like to act things out, make a little scene, and make a little advertisement, a video advertisement of why people would want to watch that, read that particular book. And just have them do really creative different types of group projects. And you can always assign for homework the movie. So I think that's really great as well. I mean, it's a great type of fun homework to have for it. There are certain websites that you can use as well. There's that work really well. These are just a few, but I mean, there's so many that you can use. There's Glogster.com, there's Wordle.net, there's VoiceThread, there's more word cloud tools. And all of these will really, really help with novel reading and with kind of project-based learning as it is. And that's about it. The other thing that I want to also stress, and let me go ahead and go back to here. Okay, so I will be back on screen. Let me put this bit.ly address one as well. But another thing that I want to stress is I think, and I forgot to put on here, was that I think that we also should have it to where the students have some time to have like an area inside the classroom, and it could be with pillows, or it could be with pillows or set aside, so that way when they finish an activity, then they can go and they can lay down and they can read their novel, which would be quite a fun thing for them to do. And then it encourages them to read, and it's very kind of relaxed, and they can do it within the class, and they don't have to take it all home. And then also, if you can take them outside, I used to take my students, and we used to have reading time, and my high school students, and we would just go outside, and they could pick a place anywhere around our general area, and they could sit down in either pillows or blankets or just under a tree, whatever they wanted to do, and they could go and they can read for a little bit. So, or you can have them try and do that pretty much at the first 15 minutes of class, and they can journal about it. So there's different things that we can do. He won't go to sleep. Hello, what's his name? Mariana's son is saying hi to me right now. But hopefully these are some ideas that you can carry with you. And you know, it's a great, I think the idea at the end of it is that we want our students to understand the novel, but more importantly, we want our students to just be able to enjoy reading. There's so many students out there who don't enjoy reading anymore. They think it's boring. They don't think it's fun anymore. And if, you know, if we can get them to start reading, and to kind of make that a good practice, then that would be really a great thing. The other thing I want to say is there are ebook readers, and I was going to ask you this question, is how do you feel about ebook readers, and how they're changing the way students read? Now, there's some really cool things. I'm going to share a video with you, and then you can tell me what you think about it. You can watch this video and tell me what you think about the way that things like the Kindle and the iPad are changing the way that our students read. And this video is called Animating Alice. Now, I didn't want to show the actual video on here because the bandwidth is never very, very good. So I'm going to put in the thing, and then you can go and then you can look at it and then tell me what you think about it. So that's your activity. Here you go. And some of you might have seen that before. I'm not sure. You can hear it in the back. But it's a really short video. It's only 45 seconds. So if you can go watch that right now, and then when you come back, just click on the hand raised, and then I know that you finished. He wanted to talk to me. How cute. Okay, did everybody read that yet? You can, if you go to the very top, you'll see a little man that has his hand raised, and then you can raise that hand, and then you can tell us when you're finished with the video. And that video is called Alice for the iPad on YouTube if you search Alice for the iPad. And that's Alice, Lewis and Carol's Alice in Wonderland. Okay, so okay, so we have different kinds of things. You know, one of them says that the kids would really love that, and then the others say that you know that it might distract too much from the text. Yeah, the text might keep students interested. And the iPad is doing some really great things with actually integrating things from the students. For example, there are books now that are like that Alice one, and what they do is the kid can make a drawing and tells the kids to do something. It says do a drawing, like it's there's one for the big bad wolf and the three little pigs and the big bad wolf, and the kid will do the drawing and then they'll scan it on the iPad. They'll scan it, like take a picture of it, and then whatever their drawing was will become the picture in the next scene on the wall. So it integrates what the students have. Yeah, and Bob raises a good point. Bob says that unfortunately, I don't think many students have readers, and I think so too. I think that's it's the future still. I mean, a lot of students don't, but there are a lot of schools that are saying that they want to go into ebook reading. So I think it's something we should just kind of be aware of and decide how we're going to be able to teach using these ebook readers. You would still have the same kind of strategies. The kids are still going to have to know, they're going to have to know pre-reading strategies. They're going to need to know literacy strategies. They're going to have to do activities. I think it's still good if they do pair work and stuff. So there's still a lot of things that we can do above and beyond. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, all the way from Bangkok. And so if you have any ideas or things that worked with you with helping your readers, let me know. You can always raise your hand at the top and then I will give you the mic. Or if you have any type of questions, you're more than welcome to come up and ask. Oh, thank you, Alessandra. Me too, Mariana. I love to read a book on pillows, and that's why I think it's really important that we have like an area when we have the reading, especially long novels, and it takes a while, that after the students finish something, they can go and they can have that area to read. Because I think it'll encourage reading, like put a nice, really pretty place with pillows or bean bags um, or have those times when we go outside and we all read together as a class if the weather is really nice. Oh, well, thank you, Miriam. And I was happy your son could join us today. Yeah, exactly. That's why it's good as a station, because usually when I teach a novel, I'm teaching some other stuff as well. I mean, the kids have other things. They can't just do the novel. They'll have to do other activities as well. Thank you. Okay, so Bob says, he says, um, I get readers for my students. I ask them their interests and try to fit a reader into their teams. Each student pays for one book and they swap when they're finished and tell each other about the book. Oh, that's great. That's a great idea. It's always good to have a book swap. And there's actually an online book club that might be great. Um, and I'll have to find it, but you can actually do a book swap. It's an online book swap. And Alessandra, she says, I also have the feeling students love personalizing the room with their work. For example, posters related to the book. I think so too. And if you go back to some of the webinars, like the comics one and the graphic novels one, those relate, and also the one on QR codes, because there's a lesson in there with the previous webinar I did on QR codes where the students do a book review and they actually do it through video or through a podcast, and they make a QR code for it, and then they put it around so when the other students finish, they can scan and they can listen to the reviews and they can decide if they want that book to read. So that's always great as well. Well, thank you so much, and I will see you next week from Texas and soon um, France and Japan. So have a great day. You've been a great audience as always and had some really great ideas. Thank you so much. And if you go to this bit.ly address, there's also actually, let me write down the bit.ly address because there's a list of novels recommended and activities and websites for them for ELT specific.